Hello, and we are live. And welcome everybody to the Black Crow Gaming Meta Monday. That's not so meta this week. Well, I suppose it is. Peachy's all about the meta. As you can see, this week we have got the one and only Peachy Tips joining us for what could only be classed as a pretty awesome interview, because me and Toby get to Toby get to interview Peachy. Toby, who is like a really avid hobbyist, isn't that right, Toby? You're the next Golden Dean winner.
Yeah, I love my painting.
Yeah.
Nice.
Absolutely. I spent
Me, who
hours
is
on it.
genuinely into the painting side of it. So this is more of like a personal goal for me. So Peachy, I want to start by saying a massive thank you for joining us on stream tonight.
You're welcome. Hopefully I won't jump out of like connectivity for you, because here in Spondon we don't tend to have great internet. It's a hamster in a giant wheel. But yeah, thank you for having me on. Looking forward, just having a chin waggle. It's great, love it.
I mean, I'm going to get started right away with this is the sort of audience that we have to deal with, Peachy.
Okay.
The first thing we get evening, and then the next thing we go, wait, that's not Duncan.
Ha! Yeah, I'm not Duncan. That's who I am. Not Duncan.
Not Duncan. We've got a superior. Yeah. This man taught Duncan everything he knows.
Apparently. I've done about everything. Some things, maybe.
Some things.
Some things.
But before we get into this, folks, there's something we have to do first, and that is just big up our amazing sponsors. So if you're wanting some awesome terrain, custom terrain for your table, look up Terrain Forge. They do high quality MDF kits. Everything from UKTC to WTC style terrain to also your more custom with, your own sort of buildings with Peachy written on the side of it. Yeah, I'm giving you some ideas, Peachy. And that is all available to you. So if you look down in our Discord, in the description, it says Terrain Forge. And if you type in the code that's in our description, you will get 5% off whatever you buy from Terrain Forge. Our other sponsor and our big collaborative is that of Glasshammer Gaming. They kindly have been sponsoring us, and if you put in the code Black Crow, you get an additional 5% off, meaning that you get 25% off in total on all of your hobby supplies, which is pretty sweet. Oh, look, here we go.
Just write this down, because I need all the help I can get.
Here we go. Yeah, sorry, Peachy, we forgot to give you the code that gets you extra money off stuff.
Thanks.
What amazing guests we are. So let's get started. So I'm very excited to be able to have the conversation tonight, and we've been having a bit of a chat before we come on, and we just kind of get to know each other. But I think one of my biggest questions, and I think for those people who maybe know of you but don't know the full story, how about we give folks a little bit of a timeline to where you started, which is actually a pretty awesome story, to where you've now got to now. So I know where you started, obviously with the workshop, if we've been calling it, but I'd love to hear it from the horse's mouth.
Yeah. So yes, of course I can give you that. I mean, I'm assuming you don't want the full story from when I was 5 getting into hobby. You want to skip to the workshop kind of juicy bits, really, don't you? Yeah. That's a long story, otherwise. So I was kind of I was at uni, and I always wanted the idea of being an illustrator for workshop. I love doing like fantasy art and stuff like that. So at uni, doing illustration, wanted to do that. They didn't like it. They wanted children's story. And that was my goal. A job came up at Workshop Derby, because I was working, like wandering around and stuff like that. I wandered into the store because it was my regular store. And weirdly, I'd applied for a few jobs there before already and didn't get them, like mail order and stuff. I was a bit too thick to be a mail order troll, apparently, which is terrible. So I was like, okay, yeah, I'll give it a bit longer. And then when I was at uni, I applied for the job, got the job. So I did like key time hours in retail, which was great because that supplemented like my uni of expenses and stuff. It was kind of a foot in the door to get into the art department. That was the plan. And then I finished uni, and my manager was like, do you want to go full time for a bit? I was like, yeah, why not? I'll do full time. And then doing full time is fine. But then I started doing painting more full time and less drawing. And if you don't use it, you lose it, kind of thing. But I was obviously gaining another skill, which was painting. I was obviously lots of paint lessons, teaching kids how to paint. small child. He was 18, I think, at the time when he rocked up into the store. And that's when I met Rhodes. He got a job working with me as well. So, you know, for a good few years we did that. Then eventually I was asked to go on the management training scheme. So I did that. Did that for a few years. That was like 2004 to like 2008, 2009, something like that. No, it'll be 2008, yeah. Because long story short, in retail at that point, you'd be a manager, and then to progress, you have to either be like a regional manager, and so you had like a sort of a cell or a region which was like 8 or 6 stores, and you have like the country split into 4, then that'll be like the higher end. So it was a very small sort of recruitment pool of, you know, trying to get into that job. You had to wait for them to die or just get fired, which was never going to happen because most of them were young anyway. So you're just like, great, okay. So I was like, oh, I really want to get into the studio and stuff like that. So knowing full well that it's really hard on retail shops to be noticed. So that's when I make the move to Warhammer World, because you're more likely to be noticed at Warhammer World, which is a bit of a shame, but it's just a fact. So I moved over to Warhammer World, worked there for a couple of months, and a job came up as an army painter. I was like, oh, that sounds fun. I like painting armies. I'll do that. So I applied for it, got the job, which was great. I would never expected to get the job. So I was like well over the moon. I remember the day and I was like on the phone, like, I got the job. And I think that is probably 2008 to, I'd even say like 29, just before COVID, maybe. Maybe a little bit after COVID was like the best years of my sort of GW life. Retail was fine and it was fun, and I had a great team and we had lots of fun, but it was still a bit heartless because you're having to like push sales and this. I'm not a salesperson, I never have been. I always found that quite awkward, especially when the dynamic changed in retail stores to be more sales orientated. I was like, oh, that feels really weird. I've lost my soul. So moving into the studio was great, and I reckon like 2008 to like 2012 was like the golden years because I learned so much in that time. And then eventually, you know, the army team moved around, changed, grew, shrunk, grew. And I became a manager of the army painters, which was great. They were an awesome team. I did that for a couple of years. Then we got like the photographers rolled in to that, a couple of the photographers in the studio, because it made sense really at that time as well that they were taking photos of the stuff that we painted, and they had lots of ideas of stuff they'd like painting and scenery. So it made sense to have this like collaborative relationship with the photographers. So I ended up managing them for a bit. And then the killer for that was then managing the photography studio, which, if you don't know anything about Games Workshop, it has all these weird micro departments that are insane. And the photography studio is the worst one at that time. I think it's improved a bit now, but you had 7, 8 photography studios or photography departments with photographers. There was like 8 different departments with photographers in one studio. You had about 7 and at times 5 setups, because there was like a 360 setup which didn't get used unless it was a web. There was a shots on white, which was mostly used by miniatures to do the box packaging. And there was like a couple of other setups for doing like army shots, battle shots and stuff like that. So my job was to make sure everyone got to use the setups, which was like the hardest thing in the world, because everyone wanted a setup, and it was like, but you had that last week and now this department needs it. It's like, yeah, but I need to finish this and this, that, and the other. It's like, there's less setups than staff. This is insane. So you had to like kind of rotate people in and out. And no one would take ownership for repairs because there was no budget. It's like the weirdest thing is like there's no budget for there was no photography department. It was like 8 different departments with a photographer. So every now and again, I'm like, White Dwarf, can you pay for this camera? And like, no. Miniatures, can you pay for this camera because it's broke? No. Books and box games, can we pay for this camera because it's broke? No. So who's paying for this broken camera?
So wait a minute. You mean to tell me you were running a department which was pretty instrumental to the success of the sales of all of the plastic crack that we own. You had no budget.
No, there was no budget because there was no department. It was fix it and hope it doesn't break kind of job. My favorite thing though of that time, because I was looking at trying to like amalgamate into one department, I did like a little pitch for it. But the weirdest thing is you have a golden angle of a miniature, right? Which is used for box packaging. But across, and this still blows people's minds when I tell them, across the entirety of Workshop at that time, you'd have miniatures would do a shot on white of the golden a shot and white of the golden angle. Then Books and Box Games would do a shot and white of the golden angle. Then White Dwarf, and then marketing, and then maybe Forge World, and then maybe the web or whichever other teams have been used would do the same shot. It's like, can we not just take the one and share it? Could we not do that? That'd be great and less time wasted, because it's a golden angle. It's the same angle, yet everyone seems to be doing their own photo. But God forbid we share.
So why didn't you share?
I don't. It was all to do with those different transfer folders, different sort of departmental folders that had certain assets in it that were like a little bit more sensitive. So like you couldn't have access to that one because you'd be able to see that, and you couldn't have access if you're in this department. You couldn't have access to that one because you might see that, even though they're all working to the same goal. And some departments had a different leeway in release than others. So let's say miniatures had the furthest scope of what was being made, and then Books and Box Games would be next, like 2 years worth of miniature releases, but they'll know what's coming up in the next year. Whereas White Dwarf used to be like a 6-month thing, whereas Web was like literally hand to mouth kind of stuff. So you'd have all these different tiers of like security levels of who could have it. So that's why it was weird. I'm sure there was a way around it, and we did try. It was frustrating for the photographers. Let's get it right, because they had to like redo work all the time. It was like, why are we redoing this? Because it's already been done. It's less of a problem for, I guess, like White Dwarf, because there was so much assets that were already done by that point, so they could use some like pictures from here and whatever. And probably same for marketing too. But yeah, it was interesting. But yeah, that stressed me out quite a bit. So a job came up to be a painter again, which I like doing, and that was doing videos with Duncan. So I was like, yep, I'm going to do that. Bye. So have fun.
Because you guys were pretty instrumental in the YouTube build for this. I mean, we started getting these videos, and as we said earlier, like hundreds of thousands of people have watched these videos. We've had one person, one of the lads from Vanguard Tactics, has literally just turned around and said, like, your tutorial is copy and pasted of how he's done his world eaters.
Oh wow! Oh, fantastic!
And this is what I was saying to you, like pre this, was that actually your influence, as as well as like Duncan's and co, has been massive on a global community. And there's not many of us that can really say that.
That feels weird to hear it,
but it's true. It's true though.
Yeah, I doubt it. Yeah,
I mean that's like how many people can say that the work that they've done has brought either a lot of people an awful lot of frustration, sadness because they can't do it, or a lot of happiness because now their toy soldiers look cool.
Yeah. I suppose there is a bit of that frustration, sadness. I mean, I get enough comments, so I know.
So you potentially, Peachy, you could be one of the most irritating humans in 40k, and also one of the most likable humans in 40k.
I definitely know. I'm hated by some people, because when I joined Warhammer TV, they were like, "Oh, who's this guy trying to take Duncan's seat?" I'm like, "I'm trying to help him. There's a lot of work for him to do, and we're trying to balance it out. Is that all right?" It's like, "I don't like this guy." But there was a style as well. That's the thing with Warhammer TV. Duncan and Roger obviously led it, because they started pretty much Warhammer TV between the two of them. And then I joined a couple of years later. I think it was like 2-3 years after it probably established itself. And because they're just, and there was Emma as well. We can't forget Emma, and poor Emma gets forgotten a lot. She's goes by Electric Eve on Instagram, and I think Twitch. I don't know if she still does Twitch, but she was there for like 6-8 months. And that time they had 2 setups as well. So they had a setup for Emma and a setup for Duncan, and then when I joined, it was just the one setup. I think they ended up using the room for other stuff, which was not ideal, because I had to sit in a right-handed setup and awkwardly look at the camera in a right-handed setup. And so I had a whole style to follow, which was Duncan and Roger's style, and I think that's what was quite drawing for a lot of people, which is probably why they didn't take to me, because I had to follow a style that wasn't me, which was what was definitely Duncan and Roger. That was their baby. And then sometimes when they're on holiday, because we used to take holidays together, editors and presenters, because I had an editor with me, a guy called Dermot, lovely lad, and we started together. So when they're on holiday, we used to get a bit mad and make our own sort of tweaks and changes, and then get told off when they got back. I don't care. But yeah, so once I left workshop, I was able to be a little bit more myself, which, and then weirdly I got comments going, "Oh, I used to hate Peachy at Warhammer TV, but he seems all right now that he's left the constraints of workshop." I was like, thanks. I don't know how to take that, but thanks.
That's a bit of a backhanded compliment, right?
It's like, I hate you, G. I was like, I'm sorry. Just existing.
I didn't
painting.
realise I hurt your feelings so much with my information-based YouTube videos.
Which is weird, isn't it? I guess, you know, it's that parasocial relationship. Some people, like, and I guess, and I can see why, because he was like the first, like Duncan was the first presenter. So when anyone else is, it's like, you get away from my man. It's like, I'm not. I'm trying to help you, man. I'm trying to make him so he can do cooler stuff. But yeah, it's funny. I love it. I look back now, laughing my head off. But at the time, sometimes it's a bit like, that's a bit harsh, mate. It's like, this guy should not be allowed near schools. I was like, I've just had a kid. I'll be taken to nursery soon. Surely I'll be allowed near a school. I don't know why. Is this the generic look of a paedophile or something? I don't know.
Oh yeah, no. As soon as we look at you, Peachy, it just screams nonsense, right?
Yeah. That's what I assumed.
And I do actually have a photo, which I think is probably closer to it.
This is actually To Catch a Predator. I'm sorry, you have been caught.
Oh no, is this not the first looking one, is it?
I don't know if I have that one loaded up. Hold on. I've got this one, which I think could quite, you know, considering the religious background, could. Oh, it's a bit big. Hold on 1 second.
Oh my days.
Why have you just brought up me in my... Yeah, so to give a bit of context, I have to wear a suit to work because I'm a corporate scumbag, and apparently that makes me look like a Mormon, so or a Bible salesman. So,
and you know,
I'm seeing it.
To be fair, we had one of our first comments was, "Why is Toby dressed down for the guest?" Which is why you probably saw me like putting my tie. I'm going, what the fuck is that weirdo doing? that was why.
You just reminded me of a fun story I had in Retail Derby once. I had four, I'd say about like 18, 19 lads. There was about 3 or 4 came in. I think it was about 3 came into workshop, and obviously dressed in suit, tie, stuff like that. And they come up, and is it Jehovah's Witness that has the tower, the watchtower? I think it's the watchtower. It's Jehovah's Witness. Yeah. So they come in. They're like, "Oh, are you interested in?" And they started in the spiel. I was like, "Tell you what, I'll take your book if you have an intro game." And they're like, what? I was like, "I'll teach you how to play this game, and you might leave with a book, and I'll have a look at your book." And I made 3 hobbyists out of that. They started their own club. It was great.
You converted the Jehovah's Witnesses.
Yeah, it was amazing.
How did you not know that your social medias would take off if you literally converted zealots?
I mean, I had a look at the book. It was called The Watchtowers. I like Watchtowers. They're pretty good in game, aren't they? Yeah, I've got my own over here. I'll show you.
I mean,
no, it was good.
That is actually quite an accolade.
it was like, I think
the funny thing is,
honestly, they were looking to get into it.
You turned them into probably to join more of a cult than what they were already in.
Oh, you're probably right, actually. Yeah. yeah. Workshop can be like that. I mean, you know, I've been I have to use the term institutionalized for like the last 20 years, which is fine.
Is that how long you worked for Games Workshop? 20 years?
I think it was 21. Some people say 22. No one remembers that far back. I always add a year just because of COVID. Seems to be sensible. Add a year. If you're confused, just add a year. But yeah, it was definitely 20 years. I've got a sword with like the date carved on it. I started in 2001. I think it was August 2001. So, and I've been gone about a year and a bit now. So, yeah, it'd be about 20, 21 years.
Is that all it's been that you've been away from GW? It feels like longer.
Yes, it was October. Oh, God, now brain. What year are we on? 24. So it was October 2022 was when I left. So yes.
So what? If you don't mind me asking,
sense, yeah, because it was a year last October. So yeah.
Don't mind us asking. What was it that drove the change?
For me leaving? Yeah. So a lot of things. I mean, I've been there a long time, and on reflection as well now, like I've had so many people reach out, like when, I mean, Louise were on a chat when we did the painting phase, and we talked about wages, and there was so many comments in that saying you were underpaid. And I was like, to me at that time, it was the most money I'd ever been paid, because before that I was doing like part-time jobs at like hospitality, different retail, like at food retail chains like supermarkets and stuff like that. So when I was at workshop, you know, I started on like, I think it was 11k as my salary. And then when I became a manager, it was 14. And then I realized at that time, most managers in other retail shops were on 30. I was like, well, I guess that's, you know, you could be paid more, but hey, I'm painting toy soldiers and it's fun. And I think there was a bit of a reliance on that as well. That, you know, you're eager because you want to do well and it's the company and you like toy soldiers and stuff. So every time I got a pay rise, it was always the most money I ever got paid. So I never really like looked a gift horse in the mouth. So it wasn't, and a few people said it's about money. It wasn't never about money, because and this is one of the weird comments I had when I left, was like, oh, Peachy just wants to leave because he wants to get rich like all YouTubers. I was like, I'm leaving a comfortable environment with a regular salary and joining something that may or may not work, and I don't know if I'll get paid or not. So it's definitely not about the money. But yeah, the last couple of year and a half of marketing, it was a bit soulless from a work point of view, and I enjoyed doing like the paint guides, but the paint guides became very much paint by numbers and not very instructive and what I would say is useful. I mean, the battle ready stuff and the parade ready stuff were kind of useful, but we had to fit a format as opposed to format work around the model, because every model's different. You approach every model differently depending on what color scheme you're doing. If I'm doing like a Custodes, I'll spray them gold and I'll dry brush it and I'll put washes on and then other things. But with battle ready, it was very much like, no, it's base coat shade, and then you do your highlights and this, that, and the other. I'm like, yeah, but I might want to do all the armor first, like spray all the armor, wash all the armor, dry brush all the armor, and then pick out all the other things. No, it's base coat everything, shade everything, and then you can do your highlights after. I'm like, you're not hobbyist, so you don't really get how painting works, but sure. So you end up fitting this format. That got a bit soulless, but I did it. I was happy to do it, and you could push back here and there. But there was lots of other weird changes going off in the background, and I think for about 6 months, I did about 6 videos, and I felt like a spare wheel. And I kind of felt at that point as well, are they going to get rid of me? I kind of feels like they're getting rid of me because they're more interested in Warhammer Plus, which is fine because, you know, it's the new big money maker. But Warhammer TV videos have been around for a long time at that point. But the other downside is because we hardly did any, the algorithm dropped, and when we started doing new videos, hardly anyone watched them. So then there was this extra bit of ammo going, yeah, no one watches your videos. I was like, yeah, because we don't do them as often as we used to. So of course they're not, because they exist. That's how it works. And yeah, it was just a lot. It was departmental stuff. Some people you work with, and like it was literally the last couple of years. And I will always say this is like, you know, I was there for 20 years for a reason, because the job, a department doesn't quite work with you, and the team you're with, you might have issues with and stuff, and you might, at that point, I think as well, I'd kind of lost my joy of being there and doing things for it, because one of the things I'm a big advocate of is, you know, I'm loyal. I'd always do everything I can for the business. I was very loyal to the business, but the one time I needed them, they weren't loyal to me. So I was like, okay, cool. I see how this works. It's a one-way street. So I think that was pretty much the nail in the coffin for me. So that's why I moved on to other pastures.
So go on, Toby. Go on.
What really helps you kind of recapture that love of the hobby? Because it sounds like in all honesty, it might have been a bit of hobby burnout. A, is that fair to say? And then B, how did you kind of circumvent that?
So, I mean, I think during that period, that last year, I definitely stopped doing that much hobby. There was hardly any. I hardly posted stuff. I hardly painted stuff. I was like playing XCOM a lot and Skyrim and Fallout, and that was enjoyable. And then I'm like, I should be doing hobby. I was like, I'm just not driven to do any hobby. I just don't want to. And then Pat had been with the business a little while, and he'd come and gone. And then I started doing like some painting again. I was like, you know, because at this point I was kind of sure I'd want to do my own stuff and see now it worked with Duncan and other people out there. I was like, oh, I'll have a go at doing some film, and I'd done some like little test shots and some test videos on my phone and stuff, and I painted some Star Wars figures, and I was like really enjoying that. I was like, Star Wars is cool, I like Star Wars, and that kind of reinvigorated my hobby again. And then just sharing this stuff with Pat, and then a couple of conversations later, it was like, let's work together. Let's he'd already started his channel anyway by that point, so I was like, yeah, I'll come and help out and do some cool stuff with you. And then, the intention was to kind of like co-run that with him down the line, and then make lots of cool content about gaming. I mean, the podcast thing just it was almost like a byproduct, because I was hired to do painting videos. And at the time, their podcasts weren't doing very well. They were going to can them. And then we did a couple of chats and then started getting guests in, and they started doing really well. So the podcast remained, and then that became the focus. And it was that kind of like thing again, like, oh, cool. No more painting videos then. All right. I like painting. So it was an easy win to do the podcast, because you just record it and then that's it. It's recorded. It's done. It's very little editing, and I'm like, cool, I've got this paint guide ready. It's like, oh yeah, we'll get on that. And then, I mean, there's a couple of times I have like 10 videos in the bag and none of them been edited. That's why I want to start editing myself, so I can try and edit some of them as well. But yeah, things just, Pat wanted to do his own thing, and I was kind of very different in what I wanted to do. So it was like, yeah, let's. I mean, there are other things which I won't go into because it's still a bit raw. But I was like, I'm going to do my own channel, and I'll just do it for me, and I'll make content that I want to make. And if people want to support me and join me on that journey, great. If not, that's fine too. And loads of people came out and supported me, which was amazing, and shockingly amazing, and still humbled to this day. Like, why are people following me? This is weird. Just some Eggman.
However, for being an Eggman, I mean, the picture of you licking that brush is amazing.
Yeah. It's a good brush.
It's a great picture.
It's a taste of Northern Oil. We need to know.
It was actually not Northern Oil. It was AK Deep Shade. I like a deep shade, so I was giving that a good lick. So yeah, it's got a nice taste to it. Yeah, it was not very nice. It had it all up the handle. It's like,
So we've had a little bit more love in the chat. We've had a couple of people say about how, again, some of your videos has helped them. So, like, for example, a lot of the bases. Someone gets a lot of compliments on their bases, and that's just literally because of a tutorial from you. This is what I'm getting at. Like, a lot of people have benefited from what you've done. Someone's just put, Northern Oil tastes like crap. Well, if you're drinking the paint, my guy, you're probably not using it for what it's actually intended for.
I mean, there's been a few times when I've thought I've washed the brush and I hadn't. I've just put it straight in my mouth. So I can understand. I can understand where it's coming from.
It's when you then look at your tongue later and you've got like a multicolored tongue from all the different shades of paint you've put on there, or on your lip. Yeah. The lip is the
Yeah. My lad often looks at me and he's just like, "Daddy, you've got paint in your mouth." I was like, "Have I? I don't know how that happened." I don't know.
Saving it for later.
Yes.
This is where this is what's going to happen in like about 20-30 years time. We're going to end up with like these new diseases coming through the hospitals, and it's going to be like, why have all these people got this large amount of ingested plastic in their body?
Yeah, you know what's really interesting, because I do worry about that actually a little bit, because it was like the 50s, 60s. If you're aware of like a lot of there used to be like old ladies in factories just painting crockery, pottery, and also like Britain's models, like the old metal painted like Fusiliers and stuff like that, and they're all lead-based paints. And then there was this period of lots of old ladies were just going bald and getting really ill and dying of cancer, and a lot of people were like, why is this happening? It was all because of the paints they were using. So yeah, maybe 50 years from now.
This is actually Games Workshop's secret plan, right? Like, they've got all these paint slick brushes,
population control,
and actually in about 30 years' time, they're going to be instrumental to the world's biggest homicide. It's not war crime, sorry. It's just one of those interesting points. We all do it. I mean, I do.
Yeah.
My wife looks at me like I'm an absolute freak. I mean, I am a freak, but this is a very different reason. And just look at. Sorry, what's that, Toby? Where's your head gone?
Nothing. I'm just giggling. Nothing. Arron, absolute freak.
If there's ever a
Sorry.
moment I could short something, it's the eyebrows going up and down. Because I've actually shaved, I've got 2 eyebrows for a change rather than the productive monobrow I can have.
Oh, yeah. Nothing like an unibrow. They're like an unibrow.
Yeah, exactly that. So let's ask some more questions whilst we've got you, because you've now started your own channel. You're doing your own thing. You've gone out in the big wide world, all on your onesome, Peachy.
It's scary. It's scary. Yeah.
And how's it going?
It's everyone's been super kind. I've had like a handful of like meanies, and I don't really care. I'll touch on that in a minute. Actually, that's really interesting sort of like thoughts on that. But yeah, it's been really, really good. So much support. And I'm trying to do I'm trying not to go down a rut of just keeping to like one type of content at the moment. I want to see what works, what doesn't work. So like my paint guides, I don't want it to just be 40k focused, and I like Warcry and Napoleon, so I don't want it to just be that. I want it to be like a broad spectrum, so there's something for everybody. And I've been told, like, it's a danger of doing that because sometimes it ruins the algorithm. But my mentality at the moment is I'm painting for the people that support me on Patreon, and then I will put out polls every now and again, and I put requests out of stuff they'd like to see, and they go up as shorts and become like full paint guides. I often go, I'm thinking of doing a talking head thing. I've got dwarfs, this, that, and anything you want to hear or me to talk about, and people are like, no, just do what you want, or it'd be really cool to hear about this or this faction or this faction. So everything I do is aimed for them and some stuff for me, and then I put it on YouTube. And I don't care what YouTube thinks, the algorithm. I don't care if it, it's good if it does well, and that's great. Louise is very good at, doing good numbers in a short space of time. But my goal is the people that are supporting me, because they're technically paying for me to exist and do this, so they get first dibs on everything. So that's going well. I'm enjoying the different types of content. There's lots of thoughts of things I've got in my mind. Some regular types of content, like the maybe doing like 3 or 5 paint guides in a video. Patrons get all of them, YouTube gets a handful of them, and if you want to see them more, that drives people to the Patreon. That may or may not work. Tried it with the markings one, where there was like how to paint some clone troopers. It's done all right. I don't know if it's got me extra patrons, so I'll see how that works. But yeah, nice mix. And then the narrative ones where I just talk about my hobby and then show pictures of stuff I've done seem to do really well. Editing wise, and this is the other thing, I'm learning editing, learning videography. I've done photography, I've done a bit of videography, but it's all the other stuff that's involved in it and the editing side of it. But they're really quick and easy to film, because I just like talk to a camera for about an hour or two, cut out all the bits that are nonsense, edit it, which is pretty easy. It's the searching for images and making that interesting. That's the hardest bit, because having just a still image looks dull. So you want it like slightly panning or slightly zooming in, or having like a couple of images coming up at a certain point. You just don't want talking head all the time, because that's dull. You want like a bit of variety and whatever. So learning that. So I find I enjoy talking about that stuff, but I hate editing that one, because it just takes so long to get all the imagery sorted and stuff. So they're fun, but I'll probably do like those once a month, and that's it. Well, in a month, like do something 40k, do something Warhammer, do something sci-fi, do something historical or whatever. So that's the kind of gist of content that I'm aiming for, among other things down the line. But yeah, it's going good. Long story short story long. Whichever.
I mean, you gave us a very comprehensive, and I think it's great because, so like I said, a lot of people benefit from this, and actually a lot of these painting tutorials can be used for any miniatures. Just because you're doing it on a Warcry miniature doesn't mean that technique isn't relevant to what you might do on a Napoleonic or Star Wars or 40k, or insert long line of miniatures out there. So I think, with regards to like the algorithm, I'm sure there's something you can do in the title that links it all together, and then you just do like another little header bit or clip part for what it actually is.
I mean, that's something I learned in early days in the painting phase. So I've learned a lot in that year being there. Like we did a clone trooper video early on, and it was like how to paint clone troopers. And on page 1 we put like a couple of other markings and stuff. Didn't do very well because it's Star Wars content, but then it's like that's a rubbish excuse. It's a really good way of painting white. So maybe next time we do something like that, we give it a different title, give it a different thumbnail. And that's something I learned from that is, making it relevant to everybody, even though it's like maybe aimed at painting Wrecker's face and the Ahsoka symbols on the clone troopers. And I did this, and it was a bit of a test. I know at the moment there's some people out in YouTube that have like these A/B sort of opportunities for thumbnails, where they can put 2 thumbnails on a video, and one audience will see one thumbnail, another audience will see another, and you can see who are liking which thumbnail more. And I kind of did that initially with it. I had to do it myself, but I launched it with some clone troopers on the front. It was Wrecker and the Ahsoka trooper, and it was all about marking some pictures of shields, and it was doing all right, but it wasn't as good as some of the other videos. And I was like, I'm going to change the thumbnail. And I changed it to a Space Marine, even though I didn't paint that Space Marine in the video. I talk about that Space Marine. All the markings that are done on that Space Marine are covered in that video. And as soon as the Space Marine's on the front, it was like, started to get some traction, and it's done really well, which is a shame. But at the same time, I still got to paint some Star Wars stuff, and they're still in there, and they still cover it, and it's still a good way of showing how to paint white armor and whatever. So there is a lesson learned with that, where you can paint something very specific, but if you cater it, anyone can make use of it. However, there is a downside to this, and this is something I learned when I was at Warhammer TV. Do you remember the tip of the days? They used to be on Facebook. They used to be like a 2-minute video, 1-minute video. So it'll be like, we have like an email, and we ask out to the community what they want to see. And like someone will be like, can I have Crimson Slaughter red armor? And then there'll be Blood Angel red armor. There'll be Angels Vermilion red armor. I was like, why don't I just do a video about red armor? So we do a video about red armor, and then you get comments going, but where's my video about Crimson Slaughter? I'm like, it's red. It's the same red. What? It's just because it's not got gold. It's the same red. And it's just like, but they needed that specific model painting so they can understand it. I was just like, So there is a bit of that sometimes, where I've done like a paint guides on Space Marines, like the first founding. And then like, we're like, how do you paint such and such black armor? It's like, it's the same as the Raven Guard. Just use the Raven Guard one. Yeah, but it's got a different gun casing. It's got like black casing. Then use the Raven Guard one, and then use the Ultramarine gun casing one. Then it's like, just swap it, just mix and match. I wonder sometimes
if it would be worth, Peachy, like in your descriptions, if you've had that before, like being like, this video also goes well with X, Y, and Z, which you can find on my channel, and like almost like link them to
I've thought about that, and sometimes when I'm doing the voiceover, I'll mention like, this is really good for this, but there's a danger that there's so many different chapters and legions and chaos factions that you end up riffing off like a huge list, just in case that one person goes, where's mine? So it does become a bit sort of unwieldy then. I totally get what you mean. Maybe pick a couple of like top ones, but yeah, there is a danger that you end up like just listing everything. I mean, it's like I've had it a few times.
We all know, by the way, that we don't want to piss off the law, the law friends out there. All those.
Yeah.
God help them put a.
The Star Wars community are worse, man. Oh God, yeah. I mean, I got a lot of on Instagram. I got a lot of love for my Star Wars What If characters, because I had the Shatterpoint set, and I just painted Maul as a Jedi, and I painted Asajj Ventress as a Jedi. Doing a bit of research, because Asajj eventually ends up having a yellow lightsaber. But when she was a Padawan, she had a green lightsaber. She's got 2 lightsabers here, so I'll do one of each color. Oh, you get some people coming out going, I think you'll find that she has a green one, not a yellow one. I was like, well, depends which book you're on, mate. Depends which book you're on. I'm in between books. So she's got both. So you do. Yeah, the Star Wars community are savage sometimes. I mean, God's sake, they kicked off about real live action Rex's bicep armor being upside down. Who cares? Who even noticed that? It's like, really? So if you don't know, that's a thing. Rex's bicep armor is upside down. How you know that, I don't know.
That's mental. So we've got some questions for you.
Shoot.
And this is actually one that Toby's interested in as well. So this is from BCG Cypher. This is one of our Black Crow Gaming guys. He's just put quite a straight question. What's your opinion on Slapchop?
It's good. I'm a big fan of it. it's weird because when Rob did it, Rob wasn't a great painter. He doesn't like painting, and Louise sat with him and they had a bit of a chat, and she showed him some techniques. Apparently it was quite a stressful time for Louise trying to get Rob to do some painting, but he ended up following this particular thing, and it brought joy to him painting things, which is only a good thing, right? So I mean, I call it like pre-highlighting. Some people call it zenithal highlighting. However you want to call it, it has a name, and everyone has a different opinion on the name. When people say slapshot now, they know exactly what you're talking about. They understand completely what you mean. So if anything, it's brought a name to a technique that has been around for a while. I know there's a few people out there that got quite grumpy going, oh, it's not a new technique. He never once said it was. He just made this fun video about doing it. So I think it's a great technique because it helps people get stuff on the tabletop, and they can be proud of what they got. And it's nice playing against painted miniatures than grey plastic. And at the end, I've got loads of mates that sometimes play with grey plastic, and I don't care as long as they're having fun. So, I mean, I've offered to paint some for them, and I have many times. But I think Slapshot's great. I think it's just a rung on a ladder of painting. And a lot of the videos I do are quite lower level rung based stuff as well. So it's a technique that fits well with me. I use mine a bit differently. I don't like start with black and build up with some greys to white. I tend to pick an undercoat that works for me, do a dry brush all over that, then let's say it's like a Space Marine that then, you know, highlights everything, and then when I start washing other colors over it, kind of gives you a bit of a highlight there as well. It's the same process, it's just using different undercoats or different highlight colors instead of like black, gray, white. But that works, and if people are finding it's getting them things painted, they're enjoying painting, why is that a bad thing? So yeah, my opinion are 2 thumbs up for it.
I'm all for it, and as obviously you know, we are predominantly a competitive channel, but we like to breach out into other things. It's actually one of the things that I think is really important to say about competitive gamers. All of their armies are painted.
Yeah,
and
that's true. I mean, it has to be, doesn't it? Isn't that a rule for a lot of the things?
Yeah, it has to be painted. So, and that is something that a lot of people out there can't say that they can even. Like, I know people who have never had a fully painted army before. But Meta Chasers have had 20-something odd fully painted armies.
I mean, there's been so many. I hate to use the word fad because it's not a fad, because even now I still use some techniques. But I don't know if you guys were around or aware of the dipping era. Yeah. Everybody did that in tournaments. I don't know if you know this, but it's like you literally base coat the figure, and then you get like, was it like yacht varnish or like some kind of like varnish from Wilco's or whatever? God rest in peace, Wilco's. And then literally just dip it and shake it off, and it kind of like gave you a nice sort of like a shade and a blend to a certain degree. And so I mean, there was a few guys in the studio that used to do it like loads of zombies. They just base coat some zombies really badly, like slap some color on here and there, but then we'd have like 150 zombies for a zombie game. It looked mega. So yeah, you know, there's always a fad, always some new technique.
Hey, you know what, these things are created for a reason. The reason they go everywhere and people do them is because it enables people to get miniatures painted, and if it's easy for them because they're not using all of these like out there techniques, you know, you don't need to be a golden demon winner. You just want to have pride in the stuff that you put on the table, and that's all that matters. If you're happy with what you've done and you're getting enjoyment out of those figures, it doesn't really matter what it looks like. And this is paying homage to competitive. Every single one of those guys, when they've got stuff on the table, if they've painted it or not, it's painted, so you're going to have a cool thematic looking game.
Yeah, no, agreed. There is a weird snobbery in the community with painting as well, and I've discovered this over the last few years anyway, because you become more exposed to people's opinions with comments and stuff on social media and whatever. But I used to get a lot of comments on the videos on the painting phase. Not so many here on the current channel I'm on. I say current channel as if I'm going to leave my own channel. But I mean, you never know. I said, Peach, I've had enough. I'm out. All right, bye. You bastard. But yeah, there's so many people going, it's an art form. Why are you rushing? And I'm like, I'm not rushing. I'm a dad. I don't have much time in the evenings, and I want to get stuff painted so I can play games with my mates or my son. And I used to get lots of comments like, you know, it's an art form. You should take your time on it. It should be precious. Like, that's fine. If that's what you're going to do, that's fine. Don't throw your opinions at me. that's okay that you want to do that. There was like one guy commented going, yes, I think it's really weird that you want to rush this. I've been painting a Necron army for the last 4 years. I'm not quite halfway through yet. I'm like, well, you've kind of answered your own argument, haven't you, really? Because when are you ever going to play with that? You said you want to play with it and you're looking forward to playing with it, but you're 4 years in and you're only halfway through. I'm like, cool.
That's a big commitment, right? Like,
yeah, but if they're happy, they're happy. That's fine. Don't judge me for like wanting to get like me, I don't know, Kroot kill team on the tabletop in a weekend so I can play a game in the weekend. And I think that's the big thing with the channel as well that I aim at. And I know we'll probably touch on this at some point, but a lot of the guides I do, and I do get stick for it, is not aimed at high-end paint guides. It's not a high-end paint guide. A lot of I can do high-end painting if I want to, if I choose to. And I've done that. I've worked at workshop. I've worked in retail doing stuff for the cabinets. I've done some stuff for box packaging. I've done some stuff for army painting and photography and this, that, and the other. I know I can do it, but what I have seen is a massive lack of people feeling that they can do it, because there's so many paint guides out there, which is like, it's so much assumed knowledge, and they're just so high end. And I won't say it's I feel bad saying it, but sometimes it does feel like it's like a passion project of the painter showing the things that they can do, but they're not really thinking of the audience going, I've got 37 hours this week to paint this one door, so I'm going to show you how to paint this one door amazingly. And it's like, that's cool, but people might want to know how to paint that door quite quickly for their into dark scenery or whatever. Is there a quicker guide? I don't know, but they're happy doing their thing and people like seeing that, and it's really nice to have that aspiration to look up to, because I see, like I said, rungs on a ladder. So I'm quite low down, as I'll call myself, on the ladder, which is entry level stuff. And that is to help people get things on the tabletop. When a box game comes out, we used to suffer with this all the time in books and box games, getting really frustrated. I know I waffle on, I'm really sorry. But in books and box games, you'd get like Silver Tower come out, and this is like the staff in the studio. They'll all go out and buy it. And then 2 months later, no one's painted anything. They've like painted one hero and none of the baddies are painting. I'm like, I'm sure we can do paint guides where we can get that stuff done in a weekend, which is what I aim a lot of my paint guides at now, which is like, when you get a box set, this is how you paint this kill team in 4 hours. This is how you paint this kill team in 4 hours. And this is how you paint this scenery in 2. So across like 10 hours, you've got everything painted, and it doesn't have to be this weekend. You might get an hour on a Wednesday, you might get 2 hours on a Friday, you might get 3 hours on a Sunday, but across like 2 weeks, you can get
a fair chunk of your army done.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's the goal of the channel.
I love that, because I've over the years I've done a mixture of quite complicated armies to paint, or which have taken me quite a while to paint, to uncomplicated armies to paint. I've painted loads and typically have quite a large collection of it all painted. And I'm actually painting something at the minute alongside some like other projects, but I don't know if you ever saw, there was the sandstone effect Necrons with the OSL blue done by Midwinter, and I looked at that and I thought, actually I want to give that a pop and see what it looks like. And I've got to admit, like, for something that is essentially like 3 colours, a shade and some OSL dry brushing, it looks amazing. Like,
I've seen someone do, I think it was Curse City, their Curse City set, or the baddies. They did like black and grey up to white, bit like a slap chop, but without the washes and contrast over it, and then just a flash of red, which looked a bit like the box art. So like they had like glowing red eyes, or like a glowing red blade, or this, that, and the other. And I know that I've heard the term, they're like concept armies, because I've seen Stormcast or Stonecast, as they're called, with glowing eyes and stuff. I think they're mega, because it's like you say, it's like a handful of colours. But when they're based, they look really cool, and I think that's the key thing.
That'd be a really cool set of videos for you to do, Peachy. This is an idea. You can throw it in the bin, but you should get an array of different miniatures, like just single miniatures, and show how the exact same paint style would look, painting technique and style would look across all those miniatures. So you sandstone Necrons across 15 different types of miniature, and vice versa, and then it'd just be like, it's quite cool. Hey guys, hey Toby, this is something that you can paint in half an hour. Does that sound good to you?
Yes, because it's 10 minutes.
I mean, it's not a bad idea. I mean, I'm not going to just do like 15 figures. I'll probably do the whole army, man.
There's so
have
many,
some B-roll of the army, yeah.
yeah, there's so many different things. I think it's a really, really cool idea. So I've got a few more questions for you. I've got to honour the guys' questions. So, we've got a comment from Misfit Kev, and you go, what you need to do is release a paint range called 5 thin coats. 5 coats equals more paint needed.
I mean, I'm starting a paint range called One Thick Coat at the moment, so and it's only in shades of peach. So wave 1 will be hitting the shelves. No, it's not. That's just all made up. That was an April Fool. But yeah, 5 thin coats. Duncan will hate me even more if I do that. Because he's like, no, it's 2. I'll be like, no, it's 5. It'll be like this is a coat war.
Look, this is my saying 2 thin coats, and then you'll be like, yeah, but 3's better.
Yeah, 3 is better.
Listen to your your senior. We've got some more questions for you. So Matthew Bruce, he put on there, what are your favourite set of brushes to use? He goes, I have an Artist Opus set that I'm absolutely scared to use for fear of ruining them. Should I just crack the seal and get on one go?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've got some Artist Opus brushes. I've got some Army Painted brushes. I've got some Citadel ones. I find the Citadel small brushes are quite nice. And I don't know if it's like they've been mislabeled, because the Artificer ones, when I was in the studio, were rubbish. They kept splitting and splaying, whereas the small layer brush always kept a nice point. So I used to use that all the time with the paint guides. There's the character and detail brush from Army Paint, which I like using. They've got like a nice like medium dry brush, which I use a lot. And then I've got like a 00, which I don't use that often, but then a 1 from Artist Opus. I'm rough when I paint, and it's still been with me for a year. So as long as you clean them and get some brush soap on them and stuff like that. Even then, I don't even use brush soap half the time because I'm lazy, and they still do really well. So I paint a lot of figures. So I tend to have, in short, I have like a small one, a medium one, and then something big for doing all the dirty jobs and like all over washes and stuff like that, because I tend to douse my models in washes.
I'm the same. I like a darker highlight because it's easier to work up from a dark highlight than it is from a subtle highlight, and then you're like, oh, actually, I want to make that bit darker. I've now got to add bits. And talking, we're gonna go into a little bit of a hobby conversation here because I'm going off on one now. So when Games Workshop dropped contrast paints, they were like, this is amazing. 1 coat, your miniature's pretty much done. The best thing that came out of those paints wasn't that 1 coat, is that if you water it down enough, it makes an awesome shade and an awesome glaze.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I agree.
They are way better than any.
I mean, I use them all the time for like glazes, power weapons, glow effects, and stuff like that. Not always for what they're intended to be used for. And I think that's the problem as well, is like that's how they're pitched, as this like, beginner friendly thing, which they're not, because if you have to be super neat, and if you get it wrong, it's like a lot of work to get it tidied up. But yeah, I had a point and I've lost it because I'm old and forgetful, because I'm an idiot. But yeah, so I mean, I do use it for glazing all the time, but it's kind of that. Oh, Peach, why are you so stupid and old? I don't know. Remember when you were going to say something that was really useful and profound, and then you forgot? Do you remember that? Yeah, I do remember that. But no, they're good. They're good paints, and I do use them for different things. Oh, that was it. Yes, I remembered. The weird thing is, like, the newer contrast, so the new range of stuff that's come out, and adding that to the existing contrast, the only thing I find really weird is there's some that are like shades, there's some that are like contrast, and then there's the ones which I quite like, which are the pigment heavy ones, like Black Legion, which cover in 1 coat. So there's like almost like 3-4 different types of contrast. It's not just contrast anymore, which confuses a lot of, like, when I do like my one-to-ones with like patrons and stuff, and they're like, well, I'm just using this color and it's not doing what it's supposed to. I was like, oh, that's one of the pigment heavy ones. Yeah, forgot about that. That's quite an important key piece of information. Bugger. So yeah, it's weird that there's like almost 3-4 different types of contrast within the contrast range, which is
so
bizarre.
I have a top tip for people with the Black Legion, which is ironic because here we've got Peachy on it. If you water down Black Legion by about 50-50, water it down, it is better than normal for your silvers. Fantastic.
Oh, I thought for 5 o'clock shadow, because it's really good for that too.
For your silvers, fantastic, and I also use it for my reds as well, and I get a really awesome contrast on my reds. And I've found that contrast paints actually they can be used at any level, but obviously the more experience you get with them, the more utility you can get out of them. So I now use that one paint pot might be for like several different things, because I can use it in several different ways. And that's sped up my painting, because it means I don't have to. It's also cheaper as well, because it means I don't have to go buy several. I don't need to buy this, and this. If I can use one paint and water it down a bit to get the effect I want over two different areas, it's also saves me money.
I mean, I'm currently doing a Slanesh guide at the moment, and I'm using my. I did some Cypherlords. If you don't know, like the Warcry Cypherlords, they've got like weird sort of like Zinchi helmets. I made some Slanesh versions because I like Slanesh and I wanted to make a big army out of them. But I painted this one warband. It's my favorite warband, and it's like the easiest paint job I've ever done, because like 3 guys took me an hour, another 3 guys took me an hour, and what I did was I sprayed them white. I used Gulliman flesh all over everything, and that was all the flesh done. And then I started picking out, like, because they have like the sandals and the thing with the Slanesh, the newer Slanesh stuff, they have all those Grecian sandal kind of style things. So it's like strap, bare skin, strap, bare skin. It's like they're a nightmare to paint. So I was like, you know what I'm gonna do? I'm just gonna do a thin coat of black over make it like a sock sandal. So I did that all over, and it kind of gave this sort of like veneer, like tights. And then I just did a second coat on the straps, which then kind of like just sunk into the middle of the strap, which then ultimately highlighted the edges. So I was actually highlighting without doing any highlights, because the second coat kind of was in the deeper areas, which then added a bit of depth. And yeah, it's my favorite warband, and they're the easiest ones, and I'm just like, I love them because they look so cool. It's like Blissbarb archers are a nightmare to paint, so I'm doing a guide on like how to try and speed them up a bit. But yeah, a ball ache.
So we'll do a couple more questions, and then we'll get on to, because obviously I know that your time is limited, but
we're fine. We're fine.
Quick question: did you always use GW products when there, and have you discovered anything new now that you always use?
Yes. So when I was at workshop, I only used GW paints for 2 reasons. One, because they were free, because I worked there. It made sense. I used to use workshop stuff when I was a kid anyway, and the odd Humbrel enamel, but they take 24 hours to dry, so I don't bother with them. Probably less time nowadays. But yeah, the other reason as well is, like, even when I was in retail, all the way up to like doing Warhammer TV, if I was doing a paint guide or any kind of painting, it's easier to tell someone, because there is a danger, like with some of the heavy metal painters and departments, they'll use like army painter black, or this color silver, or this, like Vallejo silver, whatever. It's like, yeah, but that's not how it's going to look when you do the paint guide. That's not how it's going to look in the finished article. So if someone asks you how to do it, you're going to have to lie, and lying is bad. So I always use the workshop stuff. And the weird thing is, because I used it all the time, I got quite familiar with the paints. So like, so many people like Corax White's rubbish. I was like, it's not the best, but I've found a way to work with it. And it works for me, and I get decent coverage over it. And I guess that helped. But then when I left, I saw a whole new world of paints, and I'm like, yeah, these are great. So there's like one of the weirdest ones. I mean, there's so many different companies out there and so many different things you can try. But the weirdest magical paint I've ever met is Pro Acryl's Bold Titanium White, because no matter how much you thin it down, it covers really well. And I don't get it. I don't understand. It's like I've added about a bucket of water to this little droplet of white now, and it's still covering with an opaque finish. I don't understand. It's weird. But it's a good white. Apparently it's got titanium in it, so that makes it really good. Apparently, I'm not a scientist, but apparently that does a thing.
That sounds good.
So yeah, it's good. It's a good white. It's a good white. I mean, Vallejo got good metallics. The new Army Painter Fanatic metallics are amazing. They've got a lot of glistening to them. I used to use a lot of the AK metallics. They're a bit dull, but then you got these different options, like I want dual metallics, or do I want shiny metallics? Then you got something called Dark Star Moltons that you paint the metallics, and you can get like an earbud, the things to clean out your ears, and you can just rub it on the metals, and it gives it a buff. It buffs it up to a nice shine. And I'm like, So I've done that with some Stormcast, where I've like layered back over after I've washed them with like this dark star moltons, and then just got like an earbud and just like rubbed it onto the metal, and it's just giving it a nice shine, like you're polishing boots. It's insane. That's
it's so interesting, like hearing all of these, like, peachy tips, and just coming from your life, because actually it's nice to be able to hear some people's genuine questions. So I've
Mm.
got one more for you, and we'll wrap it up soon. Is from
Yeah.
our man Aaron Turner. What are Peachy's recommendation for miniature photography?
Miniature photography.
Mm.
So I think that you can make it really easy, and I've seen like some really like amazing setups and stuff like that. But what I do for myself, and if you look at my Instagram and Twitter, because often I use the same photos across the two, is I get a piece of A3 white cartridge paper. Any white paper will do. To be fair, if you get like a big roll from like, I don't know, like IKEA or whatever, and have I got any rounds? There's a bit of paper there. So I tend to do like what I call an infinity sort of wall, because having that bend means there's no hard edges. Because often when you see a lot of photos, there's like a hard edge because someone's got like a block of white and then a block of white here, or they've got a box that's white and they put it inside it. You get a piece of paper and just bend it and blue tack it, you get this infinity bend, so there's no like hard edge. And then just need a decent daylight. I've got like an old lamp that I use, which is great. I think it's like 5,400 Kelvin, and they all have like lumens and kelvins and stuff like that. Like most daylight bulbs tend to be like around about 5,400. And then I put that next to the model. If you've got smartphones, most of us probably do nowadays, you can adjust like the lightness, the brightness. There's a really good little app called Snapseed. That's what Suggs showed me, and then you can auto balance on that after you've taken your photo. But usually on like an iPhone, I tend to go to portrait nowadays as opposed to just using photo, because on portrait you can change the f-stop and you can change the exposure. So actually you can focus on the model even with like a black background or a white background, and then you can just adjust the exposure in there, and then it kind of like blurs the background a bit, focuses on the model. And then if it's like a shot on white, you want it quite bright, so then it's like almost white showing the model. If it's black, you want to go to the darker side area, but then you still get all the colors and the punch from your daylight bulb. Another good top tip, if you want scenery shots, because I love doing scenery shots, everyone, I assume, has some form of TV or monitor. Find a cool backdrop and get a little couple of boxes. And I learned this from watching The Mandalorian behind the scenes, because they have the volume. So I just use my monitor with a backdrop to make a backdrop, and then I just stack up some boxes, probably put like a little bit of cardboard, scatter some sand on, put some bits of cork bark, and I can see a nice alien landscape in the background. Take a photo. It looks like you've actually got a backdrop there.
That's
and
really
I do that
cool.
all. Yeah. So I mean, if you look at my Instagram, there's like some forests. There's like the forest of Endor with like some trees, and in fact I get bits out the garden, like broken leaves and twigs, scatter in front to hide bits of bases or like bits of like joins and stuff like that. And then you can crop in. Doesn't matter if you can see all the shot, like, you know, you can see your curtain, you can see like a bit of the edge of the monitor, because you can just crop in to what looks right. And that's really good for doing scenery shots. You can hide so much. But yeah, use the monitor. It's great.
Wow, what an action! I've never done that before. Never thought about doing that, but that's something I've always struggled with, is being able to take like decent photos of my miniatures without my feckin' thumb being in there. Or
feels like that needs to be a video I need to make.
Yeah,
how to take fun photographs with scenic shots and stuff like that.
I think that'd be an amazing one, because everyone does army photos. Everyone takes photos of their armies. Like, we literally, for Black Crow Gaming, before we go to a tournament, we ask for photos of the guys' armies that they're taking to events, because we're a community of almost 60 players. So in our team, there's almost 60 players, all registered, all playing, and when they go to events, we want to see what miniatures they're taking, we want to see what work they're doing, and we want to show it off, because that's what we're about. We're about the community. We're about our team. We're very much like the average Joes of the Warhammer 40k world, and we love it, because that's all. Because anyone can join us. Just don't be a dick at the table, and you can come. Come be a crow, and you can get that team community feel. There's loads of people with like varying different experience in the hobby. We have our very own amazing. Some of our guys are amazing painters. Do some amazing work, all the way to guys who are really good at playing the game, and then we've got other guys who are really into lore, which is kind of take anything.
It's perfect.
And I feel like because obviously you'll have that with like your Patreon and all your guys subscribing, you build this big community, and then you can just lean on lots of different different
Yeah, no,
abilities.
agreed.
And it's
Yeah, I mean, I know I've got plans of stuff I want to do. I'm just like, oh, there's this person that can do that and knows that. So yeah, absolutely, it's great.
I mean,
Sorry, I cut you off.
no. So like you know, we started getting into it. Like Toby works in marketing, so
Hmm.
Toby's helped us massively with like the way that we've marketed Black Crow. So
Yeah.
and all once you get all of these like little abilities together, and it just kind of makes the job a lot easier, right? So I guess we're getting at this. You've gone solo, but you've still got all of these friends and people out there who are willing to help you, which must feel pretty good considering.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of people that, like I said, they would happily do editing for me and stuff like that. And at the moment, it's kind of helpful me learning the editing side of it, which is really weird, because then I know how to package videos up and then send them off and this and the other. Because initially, when I was doing my first videos, I just had a folder full of footage and audio. And that's a nightmare to keep track of and know what's where and this, that, and the other. So now I understand a bit more about making folders within folders within folders and naming them better. But yeah, I've got mates that can help me out with that. I've got like people that are like graphic designers. There's a guy that's reached out from Australia who's done like the intro now, because Suggs has been amazing. Suggs and Rob, like, were literally there straight away helping me out. They are like the top tier helpers when I first like launched, because they knew, because they've been there, they've done it. And like Rob was like, yeah, we've got a guy who does all our graphics for Suggs, and myself, he's called Tom. I'll get him to make you a logo, because my wife was helping me out doing some logos, because we were just there sketching, because we're both artists. And then Tom was just like, you like tea, you like painting, I've got you. And that's the logo. And then a guy in Australia was just like, one of my patrons was like, I can make that move. I was like, yeah, okay. So, you know, you're absolutely right. When you're surrounded by all these talented people with different skill sets, I mean, at some point soon, I'm hoping it will definitely, if I can get my wife's assembly hall school, because she works at a school, alternatively I'll find somewhere else, but I'm going to do a little peach con for the patrons, just to thank you. But I know there'll be people that are better skilled at like organizing and doing printing and this and the other. So I might reach out to the community, but like, if you can come, great. If you can't, I'll try and, you know, get you in next time or whatever. But, you know, it's like, I'm sure there'll be people out there that know how to do certain things.
PeachCon sounds really cool. That's a
PeachCon.
Yeah, it sounds really cool. I can get behind that. I mean, your name Peachy it's become a brand in itself, hasn't it? And that's something you've lent on, and it's really cool to see. This is one thing I love about working with Toby. I can turn around to Toby and be like, Toby, I've got this idea. I think it will be funny. Can you make this a thing? And then I get sent all manner of stuff. And some of it I'm like, can you just add this to it? And then he'll go, yeah, I can do that. And then the next thing I know, I've got an OnlyFans thing going on, or I've got we ripped off the Pornhub video for a bit. What else did we do recently?
My search history ends up we did
your search history, yeah, fair.
Yeah, we did. So yesterday it was literally it ended up only being a private BCG one, but it was the Piper Perry meme with one of our founders, his face on the gentleman standing behind Piper Perry, yeah, I think he loved it. Personally, I think everyone very much enjoyed that image.
So we recently started doing list reviews, and I said to Toby, I want you to get me the Emperor. I want you to stick your head on it, and not a good face. I want a bad one, and then I want to be like Emperor Toby certified, as in like this list is Emperor Toby worthy, and this is essentially what we ended up with.
That's a small head.
The thing is, I hear how I'm going to get ripped into before everyone else does already. Like, yes, okay, I will support you taking the piss out of me. Okay, no worries.
Yeah, but then you own it, don't you? So that makes it even more fun. So yeah, that's great. Being able to take the mick of yourself.
It's just become a thing now. Like I come up with these ideas. I go, Toby, can you help me make this a reality? And then we do it, and then we're like, oh yeah, that was actually really funny, and we really enjoyed that. But I think that's the benefit of having a team, right? Like,
Yeah, absolutely. You can riff off each other. Everyone's got different ideas. I mean, Mrs. Peach has always come up with great ideas. And I did a Sharp video, and I was like, oh, I wouldn't mind getting some pictures of like Sean Bean so I can have him in the background when I'm just like doing the talking head stuff. She was like, yeah, I can do that. And then she just randomly put like the spazziest face I've ever done. I don't know why not did this face. At some point she's got it on her phone somewhere, and she just stuck it on one of like Sharp's partners in one of the TV shows. And it's like, cool. So it looks like I'm getting married to Sharp, then pulling the weirdest face ever. And that was in the background. I thought I'd stick it in the background, and a lot of people made comments about that, which added to the algorithm, obviously, or in engagement, not algorithm. So I'm still learning the lingo.
Will there ever be a Mr. and Mrs. Peach video? That'd be quite fun.
I want to. I think I might do a soft introduction, because this is the thing, right? I don't know if you ever watched any of the live streams we did during lockdown. We had a Twitch workshop, had a Twitch channel on.
Unfortunately, and, during that period of time, I wasn't really able to watch much because I was working quite a lot.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
The nature of my job.
A fair few people weren't, because they're on furlough. Unlike you grafter, you're hardworking.
Don't worry, I got a lot of clap.
Oh, that's not a good thing, right?
We were meant to be clean during that period.
Oh, right, got you. But yeah, she used to like, because she would be walking past when I was doing like the podcast, because I'm in the man cave now, which has become just a dumping ground and my little filming studio. But it was in the dining room, because I'd like my gaming area under there with like my little library of books and stuff, and that's when I used to do live streaming. And I'd be telling a story and this, that, and the other, and I'd be like bigging it up, and then she'd just walk past and just like destroy me in one comment, and everyone, like the 2,000 people watching, would just be like pissing themselves laughing because Mrs. Peach has just destroyed me in like one brief moment. I'm like, thanks babes. But you know, she got quite a reputation during that time, which was great, and I'm like, oh, it'd be nice to get back on at some point. I mean, so I'll see.
It'd be like good cop having you, and then mean cop as your wife. I think would be very entertaining.
Yeah, savage cop is probably
Mrs. Peach the savage.
Yeah.
Peach the savage. There's so many good ways you can pen that.
What I've found at the tournament since we started doing the podcast like this, because obviously a lot of the time I end up being the punchline to the jokes, is that people now do that in person as well.
Oh,
and it gets, for some reason, everyone has this absolute fascination of, whenever I'm at tournaments, slapping my bum now. So I'll just be in the middle of the game, and then someone will just come past and just.
Oh, so if I was to meet you in person, slapping you on the butt is fine.
Apparently, it's just free real estate for everyone at this point.
That's great.
Yeah.
I'm in.
So.
I'm in.
I mean, one of my favourites is if we ever had anyone on here that we thought would be in a bit of a tanker, I'd just be like, look, don't be a tank and Toby, and. So basically, you can. What I've discovered through working with Toby is we can literally cut his head off and put it on anything, and it works.
I think that photo is also from before I lost weight as well. So it's just like, like 5 chins down here.
Saw it. Bless you.
What I'm trying to say is that we all need a Toby head to cut off and put on things, just to make it not that type of head, Toby. Put your head back in the.
I had some sort of horrible image of being hung, drawn, and quartered there instead.
I'll see if I can get one for the backdrop. Then I'll stick your head in the backdrop somewhere at some point.
I'll send you some, and we can get some sneaky ones in some random photos.
It's like, who's this guy? I'm like, well, there's a story.
So wait, Toby got a great one of me of like, I don't know if I've got it on it. I think it's just emo Aaron, but he had me as like crack addict Aaron, and I was at a tournament. I was looking extremely pale. I'm a pale human, right? And it genuinely looked like I was a crack addict. A plastic crack addict. But then he stuck my head on like a bunch of emos, and we've just got we now have just a folder full of just shit. Basically, if someone went through this folder and looked at him like, man, Aaron and Toby's heads are on a lot of stuff. Like, My
I do.
my personal favourite one was we had. Did you? I don't know if you saw this, and this was one of the
Mm.
best plays in Warhammer 40k ever at a competitive level. Was at the LVO final, the guy that managed to deep strike a monolith.
Oh, I don't know about this. No, no. I know a lot of like Nudge Gate and whatever
Oh yeah,
LVA, but
toilet gate and all that jazz.
Toilet Gate. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, toilet dice. No, so basically we
Toilet gate was me just scrawling Aaron's number on the inside of a stool.
oh man, it's just been just loads of dick pics. No, anyway, it's so basically what happened was during the live final of the
Mm.
LVO, a guy managed to deep strike behind enemy lines a monolith of a guy that had screened, but he didn't realise that Necrons could deep strike within 3 inches.
Oh,
So
that's bad, right?
this is not good. So he had put this, basically the guy. The new monoliths are massive, right? Like
Yeah,
they're
yeah, huge. Yeah.
so live, hundreds of people watching it. Watched as Toby. What did you say, Toby? You said something along the lines. You just watched the guy's soul fall out of his arse.
Oh, yeah, you watched a man's soul fall out of his asshole while he penetrated from behind by a monolith.
Just as this model drops behind him, and it wasn't the moment he lost the game, but it felt like the moment the game was lost.
Yeah.
You literally watch. You look at this because they did the horrible person on the camera. They're probably actually lovely, but the horrible person on the camera did a wide shot, and you literally saw this man. I'll try and recreate it. He just goes. Because and we've all had that moment where we look at something and we go, "I've cocked up here. That's the game gone."
Yeah.
And this poor bloke had just done that after 9 rounds. So we're talking 27 hours of play.
Yeah, yeah. Wow.
And he'd just done that in turn 1 of the final round. Just standing there going, "I've still got to do 3 more hours of this."
Now,
That's gotta hurt.
Yeah,
do you know what
yeah.
the best thing about it as well, Peachy, and this is why I implore you watch it, is the guy who'd also done it was a hobbyist as well, and he'd designed that monolith that it could be fitted with a camera so that War Games Live had monolith cam.
Oh, amazing.
So we dropped it, and it was just staring at the Incarn as he dropped it. And all these people.
It was essentially a live colonoscopy. It was beautiful.
Yeah. I mean, I've not had anything quite like that, but me and Duncan double tagged on a Lord of the Rings tournament years ago, and there's one of the scenarios where you have to occupy the center. It's like I think it's a 6-inch sort of like zone, and we both had Gondorians, which are pretty heavy armored and stuff like that. And we played a couple of games up to this point. It was a bit of fun, a bit, we've lost a couple, we won a couple, and it was like this last one was like, oh, we need to get this win. And then the person just had a mummock, and they just sat in the mummock. And the problem with Lord of the Rings is when you lose the combat, you beat someone in combat, you push them back like an inch. So that's fine because then you can gain ground and keep doing that. With a mummock, when you beat it, you get pushed back. So you had to kill the mummock. So it literally camped on the center. And it's like, there's not enough game rounds to kill it. There's not enough game rounds to kill it. There's no way we can win this. So we were just like, what do you want to do? It was like, we'll just walk around it for a bit and have a bit of fun, and we're not going to win, are we? It's just annoy him.
It is literally like that scene where you see all the Rohirrim roll in, and they just run around stuff for a bit. Is it in the third film? Yeah, the third film.
Yeah,
They all come in, like, and,
it was soul crushing. It was soul crushing, but it was like, oh well. But I think sometimes at that point you're just like, do I continue for the next hour, or should we just go and get a cup of tea? Let's just go and get a cup of tea.
Early beer finish, or for Peachy, a cup of your beer is tea.
Well, mostly. Mostly when I'm on 2 wheels.
So what I want to say, Peachy, is just a massive thank you, obviously, for joining us tonight. We'll wrap it up. It's been an absolute pleasure to talk to you and to hear what you've got planned for the future. I've I'm really excited to see how you go and how you grow, and it's just great to see what you've done for the community. And just thank you again for joining me and Toby on our humble little podcast that we do on a Monday night for Shits and Gigs.
Hey, I love the opportunity just to talk to people and build the network and get to know lots of other channels and stuff like that. So it's since leaving workshop, really, it's like when I left, I didn't know anyone really at YouTube. So it's just building those relations and just getting to know people. It doesn't matter what size channel you are. If you want to chat, I'll come out and chat.
I just think it's good as well because you're reaching out to lots of communities at this point. And I hope that some of like the guys who are competitive players and they want a quick scheme, I hope they feel like they can come and watch your videos and actually it will be a benefit to them, and maybe they'll start enjoying painting a little bit more, which I think all areas of the hobby eventually blend into one the longer you do it, right? Like,
oh yeah, absolutely. And it's not just like the workshop hobby, it's just painting, playing toy soldiers in general. You'll probably find 10 years down the line, you'll be like, oh, I might try some British Napoleonics. You probably won't, but you never know.
I've done lots of different other ones, but I always end up just going back to 40k, and that's just very simply because I like the books.
Yeah, I'm a big Warhammer fan, and that's the great dynamic, isn't it? It's like, because I've always been brought up on like sword and sorcery movies and stuff like that. I do like sci-fi. I love sci-fi, but I always find that if someone said to me, 40k or fantasy, I'd be like, oh, but I like swords and shields and axes and women in bikinis fighting with swords and shields and axes. It's the way it is. I mean, I could say that because Suggs is the same. She likes that too, which is great. So
one of the best things about that as well, Peachy, is you get that in 40k as well. Apparently.
Yes, you do. Slightly larger bikinis, but still golden potentially.
Oh no, they will be tiny.
Oh my god!
If this little pervert's painting them, they will be tiny.
This little pervert. And on that note, that bombshell.
Our bikini.
Yeah.
It is intrinsic that it's a film.
I need to get him off this chain of thought,
Essential.
guys.
For a minute then, you said you need to get him off, and I was like, what's going on with the channel now?
It's all right. Female custodians have already done that. 10-foot muscle mummies. Here I come. Quite literally.
Muscle mummies. I saw a meme on that earlier that was like, oh, yeah.
It's just like, what is the community of nerds that, let's be honest, probably like being dominated, gonna do when now they have these 10-foot muscle mummies as their main characters?
And this is how we get copyright struck or whatever it was we got.
Oh my god, yeah, the worst thing was we literally just linked to a tournament and for a local, and we had a strike from YouTube. I was looking at our analytics and it just went, you've been struck for nudity and pornography. And I was like, no, that links you to a tournament, not Pornhub.
Apparently, Peterborough Slam is for Pornhub.
Peterborough Slam.
Oh, right, okay.
And then we got copyright for it.
YouTube must have just gone, I guess the algorithm, if you type in Peterborough Slam on YouTube, dogging comes up. So...
It's an awful name.
Yeah, I've just realised that, and now we have to endlessly rib Paul on that.
Yeah.
Last time we went past, we also went to the Cock, which was an interestingly named pub.
Oh, I used to work at the Cock Inn. Yeah, there's one in Derby called the Cock Inn. I used to work there.
Yeah.
People never believe me. People never believe me.
Funny enough, there's a large proportion of the population who have been in a Cock Inn. Anyway, before we.
I need to just say the name of this pub that I've recently found. So it's it's on Norfolk Coast. I can't remember the exact place, but it is called the Fighting Cocks.
Nice.
And it is. I said to my girlfriend, I was like, I'm going to give up my job in marketing. I'm going to open a pub called the Fat Cock, and I'm going to theme it around Wursts, just sausages everywhere. It's going to be a miniature smorgasbord of sausage, just different versions. There'll be a hen do night. There'll be, obviously, all the. It will be very tasteful, of course.
Yeah.
Extremely tasteful.
Toby,
really.
I feel like you're just describing your wet dream, mate. But anyway,
the business idea, wet dream. They blend into one these days.
Where has this
once,
podcast gone? Like, I've let you.
I don't know, but I'm gonna throw in something quick. It's my wife's fault. She's terrible for this. We were like trying to get ideas for my brother's birthday, birthday or Christmas. It was something, and we were in Asda, and there's just like the foreign foods aisle. There was just cock flavored soup. So we're like, let's just get him a whole bundle of them. It was like a Jamaican company because obviously there's cockerels and chicken.
Oh yeah.
So you could have cockerels or chicken, but it was
God,
just called.
Please tell me
cock-flavoured soup.
you took off the wrapper and just put an actual penis on it with soup.
Yeah, well, we should have done. We didn't. We just gave him a big bundle of them because we know you like the taste of it. Here you go.
Did he actually try one, though?
You need to switch that to like some sort of really thick white soup or something. Cock soup, mate. You enjoy?
I need to find out now.
Oh, God.
I know what I'm buying Chris for Oxford now. I'm just going to throw some cock soup at him.
Pasteurized milk with cock soup written on it.
Absolutely.
Jesus Christ.
Pasteurized milk. Toby's leavings after looking at female custodies fanfics.
Oh
And
no!
on
Oh,
this
they're going to
bombshell,
coming
for
out.
the second time, we are going to end the podcast
Sorry.
here before we do genuinely get struck off and Toby loses his shit. Thank you everybody for watching tonight. I've been Aaron, we've been Toby, we've been Black Crow Gaming. If you like what you see, drop us a sub, drop us a like, catch us in Discord, and thank you Peachy. Make sure you jump onto his channel, drop him some love, catch what he's doing.
Not too much love though. Don't drop too much love in.
Yeah, no.
Drop that custodies women love.
Yeah.
And we've been Black Crow. See you guys later. Bye.